Hey there, everybody. This is an exciting one. We've been talking about doing some movie block decks for a while, and we finally figured out how to do it. So we have the first of probably a many-part series on movie blocks. So movie block is sets 1 through 10. So this is all the movie blocks plus reflections. And we're going to start off with the Fellowship and sort of an elf build. So Eric is joining me once again. So he actually has some really cool decks built. So what we have here are sort of the different ways you can build elves. These are sort of good like meta builds, if you will. Eric, do you kind of want to talk about what we're looking at besides 3 shiny Legolas Greenleafs, which I'm very jealous of?
Yeah, so I've got 3 decks here constructed. These are going to be Elven culture for the most part. One of them features Gandalf, but basically the Elven culture. So not elves and men, just traditional elves. And so we'll go through each of them. The first one's probably your standard build of just straight elves. Then we've got a little bit of elf with Gandalf culture mixed in. Oh, sorry, my tripod is moving here. Tighten that.
No worries.
And then on the end here, I've got an archery variant of elves. So, and these are all movie block, of course. So there'll be some very common themes among them, but still, I'd say 3 distinct variants here.
Great. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to do Fellowship in one video, then we'll do Shadow in one video, so people can kind of mix and mash stuff up together. So that's the kind of format we're taking here. So let's get into the first one here.
Yeah, sure. So so this we're going to just look at the Free People's sides of these for this video. And so this is and here actually what I'm going to do so I don't knock these over, I'm going to push these off to the side here. And that way the camera can focus on just the deck we're looking at. Let me just get the angle right, though, too. So
that's the problem with foils inside.
Foils in sleeves, yeah.
They're so shiny.
Yeah. So, okay, yeah, if I tip them towards me a little, it looks like that's going to be the best way to look at it.
Okay.
So the first one here is a traditional elf build. And so let's look at the starting Fellowship first off. And so the one thing people will notice, of course, since this is movie block, you're playing Galadriel, Lady Redeemed. This is an extremely strong card. Basically lets you get rid of your opponent's shadow conditions or possessions simply by discarding an elf event card. Mm-hmm. And she also, even though she costs 3, her text here is if she's in your starting Fellowship, she's 0. So that's going to be a common tie of all these decks as you're going to be playing Galadriel. Then another good starting elf is just Glorfindel, because, again, just decent stats. And then he also only costs 2 in the starting Fellowship since with his text reduction. And then, obviously, the ubiquitous Legolas Greenleaf. I think most people who've even played Fellowship block know how good this card is. So that's basically your starting Fellowship, is you get to start what presumably is 9 costs worth of companions, but really only 4. And discarding events is your primary, discarding conditions and possessions is Galadriel. This is just for the stats, and then Legolas obviously is in there for the archery ability. And then for this, we're just playing the Frodo who can take the 12 burdens, 12 resistance Frodo. And then this ring actually is important for this elf build because it's going to let you get rings out of your deck. Pretty hefty cost of 2 burdens to get those rings. But there's some key rings in this deck that your companions might want to bear. So there's your starting Fellowship.
Okay.
And then the other key to this deck, other key companion, I would say, is Cirdan. And basically, this is another pretty strong ability where his effect is you can exert him to make a minion skirmishing him strength -1 for the number of elven events in your discard pile. So if you've got 5 elven events in your discard pile, that minion is strength -5. So this synergizes extremely well with that Galadriel because you're just throwing events in your discard pile to cancel conditions and possessions. And then those same events will be able to be utilized with Cirdan to, basically you get to a point where you can start overwhelming minions, which is a fun thing that you don't usually think about being able to do. So that's, and obviously you can exert multiple times too if you really have to. You know, if you had 5 events in your discard and you exert him twice, well then that minion is strength -10. So that's a pretty key companion. You got a couple of him. And then the other really key companion in here from Elves is Gil-Galad. And, you know, he is just, again, a very beastly card statistically, and has this effect that you can exert him to wound each wounded minion. So he can really help clear off the field to, you know, double or triple move, and just a, you know, very beastly companion. So you got 3 of him in there. Then Elrond's kind of just in here as I think probably the 9th companion. He's decent and whatnot, but not critical to the strategy. Then for your non-elves, we only have 2 because this is pretty much a straight elf deck. But if you're playing movie block, you're pretty much playing, you know, both of these guys, which is Samson of Hamfast to remove burdens, and Radagast the Brown to be able to triple move. Then getting into the support cards, you've got Aiglos. Again, that's a nice effect on Gil-Galad, can really make you powerful because he gets strength bonus off of that. And then you can also throw this basically in the regroup to wound a minion for each elf you spot, which, you know, will be quite a few, you know, 4 or 5. So then you get into your rings. So these are the ones that I said, you know, you can pull using the 1 ring. And this Narya is really just in there to give that Cirdan extra vitality for extra exertions. Nenya has a nice ability for Galadriel just to heal and stack the deck. And then Vilya is going to be extra vitality for Gil-Galad primarily. This is another key card that is really good for, now I'm into events, but a key card that's really good for when you have all elves is this: draw a card for each elf you can spot as a fellowship phase action. And so the key thing here, of course, is you get your 4 elves out and you can draw 4 cards. I think most players know the rule of 4, which says you can only draw up to 4 cards in your fellowship phase anyway. So it doesn't help you to get 5 or 6 companions down for this, but as long as you have your 4, this is just a event, just an unconditional draw 4 cards. So that's very key. Probably actually play that card as opposed to some of the other events that you're just pitching in the discard. Forearmed is just going to be a nice pump for your elves, and if you are stacking the deck, it can be very good, but it's just a kind of -X for the minion skirmishing your elf. So we got 4 of those just as pumps. And then you are going to see in these decks kind of some random type event cards that are high reward, but, you know, for the most part, for most matches, you're just throwing them in the graveyard to discard a condition for 0 cost. But if you're playing against Sauron minions, you just start, you know, these cards literally discard a minion just for a maneuver action. So they're really strong against that. Shadow Between's a key one. Again, give yourself some extra healing if you're elves, as well as a little minimal amount of cycling. And Tale of Gil-Galad, just pump on Legolas health, and then Tale of the Great Ring, just help keep your Ringbearer alive. So I think that's a pretty good, maybe more detailed overview on that first variant, because that's really the main elf variant that that was the world champion this year. Pretty close deck to that right there that I just showed you. Only difference, I make all my decks 33 cards just so I can interchange all the sides with each other just for convenience. But that's a very standard build there. So
that's a nice rule. As you go through the cards, we'll post these in the descriptions, but can you read the card title just for folks, you know, with the glare and the foil? Sometimes it's hard to see what the cards are called.
Yeah, no, sure thing. Or at least give you the partial titles at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good if I move on to the
sure.
next variant then.
Yep, let's do it.
All right. So for this next variant, this is going to be the Gandalf variant. And so the key with this one, I think that is pretty cool is if you're playing either, some people just really hate Galadriel, Lady Redeemed, and then there's also, if you're playing the PC's version, they've issued an errata on her. So the point is Gandalf gets really much more critical if you can't play Galadriel, but the point of this is, why not, you can still have them both. So this is going to be, I'm not going to go through so much of the starting part of this, because this is, I would say, is half of the deck is going to be similar to what you just saw. You're going to have your same starting fellowship. The Gil-Galad is going down to 1, Sam 1, Radagast 1. So again, these are some of the same cards you saw in the other one. Aiglos, Nenya, Shadow Between, Tale of Gil-Galad, Forearmed. So it's the same core of that deck that you just saw for about 50% of this deck. And then the other 50% there we've got is a nice Gandalf package. And so that's what I'll give you more detail on here. So the specific Gandalf you'll be playing with this is the Manager of Wizards. And so Gandalf, Manager of Wizards, what he does is you can place 3 cards from your hand on top of your deck to make a minion skirmishing an Unbound Companion, strength -3. And then there's a prevention if the Shadow can do that to cancel the -3. They put their cards on their deck. But long and the short of it is, the main point is this lets you stack your deck for the telepathy. They usually call that type of ability, where you take a card from your hand, put it on your draw deck. And that will be very key for a couple different things that you'll see. So that's really the key thing, is the ability of being able to take cards from your hand and putting them back on top of your deck. So that's what the Gandalf variant is really nice for that. So we've got a couple Gandalf, Manager of Wizards. Reason why we only have a couple is we also are running a couple copies of A Wizard Is Never Late. So you'll be able to basically fish out that Gandalf pretty easily. Otherwise, of course, you could play more Managers of Wizards, but this is nice because this can get a couple other cards that you'll see here too. And then as far as other companions, again, since we're not going all out elves, there's some incentive to play other just splashable excellent companions. And as you guys probably know, Ranger of the North is just a great splashable card when you can just throw him down once, stack 4 minions on him or whatever, and have him bite the dust. That's in there. And then this is one of the key cards that you're using with the Gandalf, which is Glimpse of Fate. And so each time you lose initiative, make a minion strength -4. So between the Gandalf -3 and between an extra -4 off this, it's the same concept. You're potentially overwhelming minions by making them so cheap. So small power. And again, this is just a 0 cost condition. So this is pretty nice to just have that thrown down, and then Gandalf can start, similar to like Servant of the Secret Fire, I guess you could say, but it's a condition that you can just be repeatable, and it's for a -4 instead of a -3. So that's one of the key strategies for losing initiative with Gandalf. Then you've got just a couple support cards in Gandalf's Staff, and Terrible and Evil is going to be a great card whenever you're playing Gandalf. In particular, this protects you from Enkea, because this is a maneuver phase action. So you can exert Gandalf first to exert that Enkea so that he can't punish you for having too many companions. That's my favorite thing to do with it. But obviously it also just turns Gandalf into like a Legolas Greenleaf or a Aragorn with a bow, same type of idea. Then these are just, again, more cards, similar effect of just getting rid of key shadow cards. This is one of the only cards I know that gets rid of a shadow artifact. So it can do shadow possession or shadow artifact. And it will also can go in fellowship or maneuver, but got a couple of those. Roll of Thunder. And then do have a Deep in Thought, where if you just need to get rid of all the conditions, this does that. All it requires is that, you have extra Twilight left in the pool, which in decks like this, oftentimes you do. And Barlam and Butterbird, just to get back the variety of different events that you might be playing here. And then the other key thing, of course, is that I didn't mention with Wizard Is Never Late. Obviously, that gets Radagast too, so that's kind of cool, where if you need to triple move, you just fish him out with that too. So that kind of shows how the Gandalf suite, I think, can very nicely complement the elves. And I think the one other thing that I would mention with that before I move on is the Forearmed card has some huge synergy with Gandalf. So this is the one where you reveal the top card of your deck and make a minion skirmishing an elf strength -X, where X is the Twilight of the revealed card. you can do some just like stupid broken stuff with this. Like if you're playing Sauron, you know, in your deck, that's an 18 cost companion. So you can literally just use Gandalf to stack a Sauron on top of your deck and then play Forearmed, and you literally just overwhelm any minion in the game with any companion in the game. So like Sam, son of Hamfast, would just overwhelm Sauron, you know, that type of idea. So that's where the telepathy and the stacking cards on your draw deck really synergizes well with this particular event. And then obviously on the shadow side, if you have expensive minions, that is even more synergy. So
very cool. I mean, it's also just, I was just saying, it's fantastic seeing all this stuff in foil. It's so fun. So props to you for getting this done, man. It looks great.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, there's more to come, but it's been a fun thing for me to do. I've had all these decks made for a long time, but it's been really fun for me to go back through and try to get them all foiled. So the very last one that I've got for you then today on the free people's side is really an archery variant of elves. And so this is actually going to be probably, I'd say, the most different among the three decks in terms of just newer, different cards that are not overlapping. Like I said, I think the difference is the first two are a pretty similar deck. You just kind of axe half of the elf side and sub in Gandalf. This, on the other hand, the elves and stuff you see is going to be a little bit different. So this is a fun one, though, if you like archery, for sure. So you've got your Greenleaf, of course. You can't get away from him. But we do, instead of Glorfindel, we play an Arwen in here. And this Arwen is just very good against, it's Arwen, Queen of Elves and Men. And it's just very good against wounded minions because each minion skirmishing Arwen is strength -2 for each wounded minion you can spot. So if you can spot, 3 wounded minions, it's strength -6. So it can get up there too in power level. So that's Glorfindel is subbed out for that. Do have the Lady Redeemed in there though. Again, when you're playing movie block, if this is legal, I'd always recommend playing that. And then we do have a variant on the Ringbearer. Then this time we're doing the old Bilbo's Heir because we got a couple bounder type things in there to do some recurring healing. But we've got a different Ringbearer, and this we're electing to play Grass Ring on this too. Again, you can get Frodo. This is kind of a fun combo. I'll do this one first. This isn't really elf related, but just a fun combo for you to know for like really could use this in any deck. And that is you've got Frodo, old Bilbo's Heir, whose effect is at the start of each turn you may heal a Hobbit ally, and then this you see this in Fellowship block. Bounder obviously is a Hobbit ally that says exert him to make a Hobbit not be overwhelmed unless their strength is tripled. So you combo those two together, and you combo it with the Grass Ring, who gives Frodo a little bit more power. So you've got basically a Frodo with a base power of 5 that can't be overwhelmed unless his strength is tripled, which means he can fight minions up to 14 power, which is pretty nice to be able to throw those more powerful minions on your Ringbearer like that. And you can just do that every turn because the old Bilbo's Heir will just recurringly heal the Bounder. So we're running that combo in there. Then back to kind of the archery part of this, we're running Cirdan in here, but again, that's just because we're doing the same elf events, as they might call it, elf events with Galadriel and Cirdan are just great combos on that. And then Sam again. The other key companion here that is not an elf is going to be Éowyn, Lady of Ithilien. This is a popular companion throughout many decks. Focused on wounding, because this is the one where it's exert Éowyn to choose an opponent. That opponent must wound a minion for each wound on each minion skirmishing Éowyn. So you want to get a wounded up minion on her, and then exert once or twice, and you can just do incredible amounts of wounds with that. When you play you can't do this in movie, but you play other formats, you can get her defender +1. Put 2 minions on her, and then you're just wounding just extreme. But this is just in here as a solid play here. Got a couple of those. And then with the archery, we're going to be doing some healing ourselves. So we've got a couple Elrond Herald to Gil-Galad, and that's just recurring healing for your companions. Probably most people are familiar with that. And since this is an archery variant, we're running the Elven bow. We basically run 3 of those so that we can put on every person who's not Legolas, make them an archer as well. And then a little bit of enhancements for Arwen. We've got Gwemegal. And Gwemegal's main function in most decks is this nice ability where you can just discard 2 cards. So it's really helps with cycling. And then Asfaloth in there too, just for Arwen pump. And Sting for Frodo. Like I said, if you got him with a base of 5, you get him up to 7 with this, then he can fight minions up to 20 power. So it's pretty crazy. Then same Aiglos and Shadow Between, some of those standard elf staples. Then this is unique to this deck, of course. A very fun card is the Double Shot, just a 0-cost event that increases the archery total by 1. And again, since it's an elf event, it's going to synergize with Galadriel, synergize with Cirdan. And then since this is an archery deck, of course, it's really nice to have 4 of those. So there's the
four double shots.
4 foil double shots. So
I was wondering where they all were.
And then for pumps, because we're not really doing any telepathy, we're just going to play Valor. And this is going to typically be the +3 though, because any wounded minion. So you got 4 Valors for our pumps. And then again, some of the random pumps just to have stuff to pitch for Galadriel. We've got 3 Stand Against Darkness, 2 Curse the Foul Feet. So those are great. And then just 1 Catch-All Wounding card in power according to his stature, which is just a staple again for Frodo can get into skirmishes pretty safely. So nice to have that as a backup option. So that is the deck there. And I think that's basically what I wanted to cover on the elf side. Anything else you think would be helpful, Matt, about any of these decks?
No, I mean, this has been really great, Eric, and it's been just awesome. Kind of hearing you go through stuff, I think is really helpful for folks. If you have questions on these decks, we'll try to put them all in the comments so you can kind of grab them and start building them yourself. But feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll be back with more videos, including sort of the some shadow side sort of companions for this. So I think that's all for today. But thanks so much, Eric, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.